Welcome to Scene Saturdays, where we hear everyday women's stories of triumph and how they choose to thrive visibly in the midst of having invisible chronic illnesses. Today, I'm here with my sister, mentor, boss, and all-around powerhouse, Miss Jennifer Nealey, to talk about her experience with ulcerative colitis. Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, girl.
How are you?
I am wonderful.
Good. Thank you. It means so much for you to be here. I was going to start with thank you so much, but because you are my sister, my mentor, someone I really care about, I just have to say it means so much for you to be here.
Because it means a lot for me to be here for you, too. So
thank you. So this is our first Scene Saturday interview, and I tell people all the time when I've started talking about creating the Scene Society and why I created it, that the Scene Society started in the shampoo bowl at Jennifer's salon. Because I was walking in, going through a really rough time with my illness, and I just felt like I was the only one in the world who had an ostomy. I was the only one in the world going through Crohn's colitis. And I sat in her shampoo bowl, put my head back, tears started to roll, and I was trying to hold them back. And she said, "Tiandre, what's wrong?" And I just blurted out everything that was going on. And in that moment, she started to tell me her story. And from there, I knew that there is power in being seen, there is power in being heard, and there is power in community. And so I wanted to bring you today so you to share some of your story and share what you've overcome and what you've learned from those things. So tell us a little bit about your diagnosis, how you were diagnosed, and I guess you have chapters in your story.
Girl. Oh my gosh.
So tell us the beginning chapters of your story with your diagnosis.
First, I want to say congratulations to you. Yes, she coming out, y'all. It's been a long way, but congratulations.
Thank you.
So first off, I started having issues probably around 17 years old. And it really started getting bad when I was in college, and I had gone to the doctor throughout my senior year several times, and I went through college going back and forth to the doctor. Finally, he diagnosed me with IBD. So IBD, now I want you to know, it was a family doctor. The doctor that my grandmother went to, the doctor that my mother went to, the doctor that now I was also going to. And it took several visits for me to get an IBD diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So with that, of course, it's just eat more fiber. Eat more fiber, drink more water is all they were telling me. Drink more fiber, eat more water. So I went throughout college, with the uncomfortable issues. It started with either I had diarrhea or I had constipation. At that time, I did not really realize that I was having bone pains and muscle aches, and because I was overweight, and the doctor was just like, "Oh, you need to lose some weight too. That'll help with your bone issues. With the bone aches and the muscle aches, and you need to lose weight." Mm-hmm. So got through college, still having issues. Now my issues are more severe. Because depression started to set in because I was always sick. I was always tired. It was nothing that I was never just feeling great all the time anymore. Mm-hmm. And during those times, you learn to fake it. Mm-hmm. You learn to fake it. And I think that's what causes the depression, because you're feeling horrible, but everybody else thinks you're okay. And I've always been the hyper person, I've always been, the strong friend. So I'm still carrying all of my duties, but on the inside, I'm feeling some kind of way. After college, I end up working for a company that just so happened had a Black nurse. And I would get sick and I would come to the nurse's office, and, I was telling her. And this happened actually I was probably around 22 at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
So started having issues at 17, had an IBD diagnosis till around 22.
But no real medication, no real interventions even at
No.
this point?
It was lose weight, and it was just lose weight, eat more fiber, drink more water.
Do you feel like your where you were living, the part of the country you lived in, I know you were in Arkansas, do you feel like that contributed to the lack of resources that were around you?
I feel like it contributed to me not being seen because, as I said before, I'm from rural Arkansas. And I was going to the doctor that my grandmother had gone to. So, in that area, it's going to be a Caucasian doctor. At that time, I didn't know doctors look like me, So going to the nurse's office, and it was somebody that looked like me. Now, number one, that was like, okay, okay. But when I started telling her my story, and she was like, Jennifer, the third time you went back to that doctor with the same issue, he should have sent you to a specialist. I'd never seen a specialist. So this is 17, I'm 22. I had never seen a specialist. So she then referred me to her specialist. And she helped me call, set up. At that time, girl, I didn't even know what a gastroenterologist was. From 17 to 22.
No one mentioned that.
No.
Even with that, wow.
No idea. Had no idea. So this Black nurse in this company that I was working for after college was the first person that told me what a gastroenterologist was. And she told me most likely what I had and, gave me some paperwork on it. And that's the first time I ever heard of ulcerative colitis. Like, I had no idea. So I went to, initially she said, you need to find a gastroenterologist. So I found a gastroenterologist and I went, did not touch me, did not filled out the paperwork, said, what is your issues? I told him what my issue was. Again, this was a doctor who looked like my doctor back home. And he said, what is your issue? I told him, wrote me a prescription, and I left. Didn't touch me, didn't take labs, nothing.
And let me stop right there, because this is how representation and just information is so important, because you didn't even know you needed labs. You didn't even know that wasn't a normal experience for you. So what happens when you're still sick? Because I'm assuming this medication, no one knew it was really going to work on you or not. So it was just a gamble. So what happens?
He didn't give me medication to treat the issue. He gave me pain meds.
Wow.
He gave me pain meds, which at that time I did not know was technically exacerbating my problem. So I took the pain meds and I continued to have the problems. I continued to have depression that I at that time did not acknowledge as depression. So I ended up when I started there, I had a female boss, right? A female supervisor. And I was comfortable, explaining to her my issues because my supervisor there, she looked like me. And so I asked her for a meeting. I went in, I kind of discussed with her and I told her, listen, if you're ever looking for me, please come to the bathroom. If you don't see me on the line, come to the bathroom. I might be stuck in the bathroom. And she said, no problem, Jennifer. Several times she had to come in and say, hey, Jennifer, are you in here? I'm like, yeah. And, she, do you need anything? Blah, 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 blah. She was very understanding. Well, this supervisor ended up leaving. So now I have a male supervisor. I have a male supervisor. And, I went in and told him the same thing. If I'm ever missing, come sit for me in the bathroom, right? So it just so happened one day. So for me, my experience with ulcerative colitis, I could go weeks and weeks without going to the bathroom, and that is very painful because it is fecal matter built up, and also it hurts. Like, you're bloated, it takes all the water away from your muscles and everywhere else in your body to try to pull to your colon to actually try to make you go. And then when your colon is not moving at all, it's really not working. So now you're feeling actually like you've run a 10K and you're just exhausted all the time. So I end up in a bathroom one day. I had not gone, I don't even know how long it had been. I know it had been weeks. And so my experience is when I had a bout of constipation, which is what I was having at this time, once I would go, there were so many times that I couldn't even walk because it pulls all the water from everywhere. So now your muscles are actually depleted, and I couldn't walk. There's so many times that I've had to crawl to the bed or just lay on the bathroom floor. I've had some good friends in my life that kind of, just sat on the bathroom floor while I'm in there crying and in pain. But in this instance, I got caught at work. And when you got to go, you got to go. And urgency is something that, anybody who's dealing with Crohn's and colitis definitely is familiar with. Mm-hmm. And when urgency is when you feel like you got to go, like it's right there. You don't have time to move. You don't have time to do anything else. It's like you got to go to the bathroom. So I end up in the bathroom that day. I remember, I think it was before lunch because they went on lunch break. So lunch break was like 30 minutes. They went to lunch, and you hear, I'm in the stall. I hear everybody coming in, and then everybody leave out, because you got the rush. And then before it's time to go back to work, everybody rushes in, everybody leaves out, and I'm still there. So for me at this time in my life, it was a very humiliating disease because who wants to talk about fecal matter? Who wants to talk about gastro issues? Who wants to talk about whether I can't go or you are going too much? Nobody really wants to talk about that. And so being embarrassed, I sat there and I did not call for help. I didn't ask for help. Mm-hmm. And so because what happened is because it's been so long since I've gone, so I might go, and then you stand up, and then you got to go again. Mm-hmm. And then you go, and then it's so excruciating to go, but then you go a little bit, and then you stand up, and then you got to go again. So it's kind of, that's what was happening to me. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't saying anything, but I know I don't know how long it could be. Like at one point, the longest it took me was like 6 hours to evacuate.
And I think for people who aren't used to hearing this narrative about ulcerative or Crohn's, they may think it's the going all the time. And so you're raising a very good point that everybody's body is different, but also a big part of why this work and this conversation is so important is because the hiding becomes normal. Girl. Like you're in the bathroom in crisis and you're still hiding because you're trying to navigate your career, you're trying to save face at your job. And again, bathroom issues are not things people talk about.
Absolutely not.
So you're there. This is really humiliating for you. What happens?
Girl. So they went through lunch. They went through the second break. And after the second break, so after lunch, I hear Jennifer Foster, please report to the office. Jennifer Foster, please report to the office on the speaker system. So that means everybody in the whole building is hearing my name called. So at this moment, I'm in the stall crying. Like I'm crying my eyeballs out because I clearly sat in this man's office and told him, if you're ever looking for me, come to the bathroom, right? And so they're calling my name out. Nobody, of course I'm not coming because I'm stuck in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So this is after the second break. Girl, all of it, after a couple of times of them calling my name out, one of my girlfriends from the job, she actually came in the bathroom and said, Jennifer, and I said, yes. And she was like, oh my God. And they call the nurse's office. So at that point, I think one of the most humiliating moments for me navigating this disease was in that moment. In that moment, instead of him, the supervisor, just simply bring in a wheelchair, kind of wheel me in. She was like, Jennifer, he's looking for you. I was like, I can't walk. So instead of them bringing a wheelchair, they started the siren, the crisis siren in the building. So now the crisis siren is going in the building. We had a little ambulance truck that you could lay people on, because it was like part of it was an office, part of it was a factory setting. So if you needed to lay somebody on it. So the ambulance truck, and I hear it coming, like a literal ambulance. So everybody in the whole entire building is now looking, who, what's happening? What's going on? So now, me trying to keep this private, already humiliated. Now I'm at the back of the building. So I took 3 people to get me on the flatbed truck thingy. And I literally had to lay there and be hauled from the back of the building all the way down to the nurse's office that was in the front of the building, with everybody staring at me. Because, of course, it's like, when you're driving and someone has an accident on the side of the road, people want to see everybody. So now this was just not my personal issue. This was, everybody knew something was wrong with her, which I'd gone through at that time. Like I said, I was about 22, and if I'm not sick, I'm very hyperactive. I'm very high energy. I'm a very high energy person. I like fashion. So I would come in, I'm fashionable. But of course, when you're sick, it's chronic. Chronic means it hits at any time. So I can be this ball of energy one minute, and the next minute I'm at the nurse's office going home. And at that time, we had FMLA. So I did have medical leave for FMLA. And in those years, you had some was paid and some was not paid. So I had to go through a lot with the people that worked there, because they thought I was faking.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. Oh, they thought I was faking. It was like, how can, she was fine a minute ago. How's she that sick now? Or if I would come to work in the morning and I would leave in the afternoon, or if I would, come to work in the morning, and as you stated before, I am a hairstylist. I'm still accepting new clients.
Free shameless plug, free plug.
But so I would, I might not come to work in the morning, but if I got feeling better, I might go to the salon in the afternoon. So people would come by and see my car, and so it's like, well, she didn't come to work today. How is she in the salon? So I'll get to that later. But so this day they had to call the ambulance and for me to go to the hospital. So I did end up at the hospital. But that started that moment, although it was like the most humiliating moment for me, it saved my life. Oh, wait, I need a tissue. So,
It's something right behind you, right there.
That day, so when the nurse, she talked to me that day, and she said, Jennifer, you got to get some help. I'm going to help you. You got to find a good doctor. And she said, I want you to get some help. And, I was like, okay, I can go to the doctor, right? But, being a young Black woman, nobody in my family had gone through therapy. Therapy wasn't, we're talking almost 25 years ago. So therapy was not something that, you heard about in a Black household or, that we did. So at that point, she actually gave me her doctor, and she called and talked to her doctor and explained my issues and what had been going on with me. And so when I went to him, he was the first doctor. And at this point, I'd gone to 2 gastroenterologists that neither of them touched me. They just prescribed me medicine. So this was the first time that someone said, you need to have a colonoscopy. And I was like, oh, well, the second gastroenterologist I went to said, "Oh no, it doesn't sound like you have IBD. It sounds like you have ulcerative proctitis." So my diagnosis went from IBD to ulcerative proctitis. And so for those of you who don't know what that is, it's just like where your infection is at the lower part of your colon. It's not, the total colon. So at this point, she was like, I have to get you somewhere. So she got me to her doctor. And he did an exam, like he touched everything. He took labs. He scheduled me a colonoscopy. He scheduled me to come back.
So at this point, because I want people to understand that the stakes are higher for people of color, and especially women of color, when we don't know and we don't have advocacy, awareness, and those pieces. So at this point, your first time getting labs is how many years in? 5?
5, yeah.
5.
5 from actually having issues, actually just not feeling well.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went 5 years without pretty much, someone knowing what was going on.
Because you had a Black nurse. You were finally able to get what you needed.
Yeah. And the Save My Life piece happened because after this situation, so now my anxiety is high. My depression is skyrocketed because I walk into work every day and I'm humiliated at what he did to me, and I still have to go to work, and this is still my supervisor. So I have resentment and anger towards him, but I still have to do my job. I'm depressed because now I feel like everybody knows something's wrong with me, but they don't know what. The whispers got higher of people saying there's nothing wrong with her, and, people kind of treated me differently. And then that one day, I started going to work and I started to hyperventilate. And I could not go. Like, I could not go past a certain point, and I literally could not breathe. I would start having an anxiety attack, and I would stop, kind of go back and come back. And every time I got to a certain point to get closer to my job, I would have an anxiety attack. And so I called the nurse and I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't come in. I don't know what's wrong with me." And she was like, "Well, tell me." I tell her. She said, "Jennifer, you're having an anxiety attack." And I'm like, "What's that?" I had no idea what that was. So she walked me through that. And she said, "We got to get you to some therapy, baby." And that was the first time, like, that job, through that Black nurse, she made me go to a therapist. And it was in therapy that I started to learn how to actually deal with the disease. And through her gastroenterologist, who inherently did give me a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, and from the colonoscopy, and he was like, "Yeah, and from my labs." So now I have an understanding of what's going on with my body. I have an understanding of why I've been feeling this way. And then with the therapist, I was getting an understanding of how to deal with the trifecta of everything that had happened and everything that was going on, and why I was having an anxiety attack at 22 years old.
And now I can tell you, you had an anxiety attack because you had a leader who refused to be inclusive. You had a leader who refused to hear your story and see you and understand how it would make you feel. And I think that right now people get so caught up in the, like, not that identity isn't important, but we don't think a lot or acknowledge that leadership is also about how you make people feel in the process of leading them. So if you're leading and you're still making people feel, you're not thinking about how you feel valued, how it even feels to be you to come to work, then you're not being a leader. You're a manager, you're managing people, but you're not truly leading, you're not truly caring about the basic humanity of others. And I think that's something that always stuck with me when I heard your story, to always think about that because of what I was going through, because of what you went through. And so I'm so sorry. I know every time I say this, I'm like, hear your story. I'm like, I'm so sorry that happened to you, because I can identify with some of the humiliation and the hiding. And I just want to always give people a hug when I find out that that's how they were feeling. But I wish we could find this Black nurse, because she was an angel. And I appreciate how she showed up for you. So I don't know who she is, if she ever sees this, or if you ever talk to her. There are like other people who've been blessed by what she did for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because going through therapy, I just learned that it doesn't matter what other people think. And the therapist also helped me to realize that it's so much easier for people to acknowledge something that they can see, like that our disease is invisible. Because guess what? I'm gonna bring fashion. I'm gonna bring color. I'm gonna bring it on my good days. And so when they see somebody stepping out, I know someone right now who's dealing with stage 4 breast cancer, where she's had a double mastectomy. The cancer's back, but guess what? She's a fashionista. She fixes her hair. She's going to wear her makeup. She's going to look good. And people on social media every day is telling her that she's faking. Like, we just had a conversation last week. This woman is dealing with stage 4 cancer for the 3rd time. And people are telling her she's faking because she looks good. No matter that she's had surgery and had to have both her breasts removed, but because she still looks good. And I think that when you push through, you learn to fight. And sometimes I think to our detriment, because sometimes when we probably need to say, I just don't feel well, we'll keep going. I was
going to say, like, your resilience is great, but we also need to acknowledge that there are times we have to stop, and there are times that we can't keep putting up the facade to make other people happy.
Absolutely.
And so, but you don't learn that until after, for me, until years after my diagnosis and becoming comfortable with who I am and talking through what was going on. So because I know there's a lot of, you have a long story, so we could really do a part 2, part 3, and part 4. But how did you get to the space, when I go back to the day I walked in, and now I feel like I'm going to cry, but the day I walked in and I felt like nobody saw me, how did you get to the space where you could tell your story and own your story and walk in who you are and love, like, every part of you, like the woman that I know now?
You need a tissue now.
I know.
Girl, I'm alive. I am alive. Like, y'all, So the day that I knew that I had to have surgery. So I have I had a total colonectomy. Like, I have no colon, and I have currently have a J pouch. So the day that I actually realized that I was going to have surgery, it was an emergency surgery. Like, I was sick so long. Like, God has really put some really good friends in my life, because at one time, I told y'all I was always a big girl. And at this point, I had been losing weight because, and I just thought I looked good. And there was a fight night, and my friends, they pulled me together. It was kind of a little mini intervention. And they were like, Jennifer, you look horrible. And I was like, what?
It's not funny, but it's funny when your people are going to tell you what you need to hear.
Girl, they were like, Jennifer, you look bad. And I was like, what you mean? I had my little low-rise jeans on. That was when, you put the little thong up on the side. I just knew I was looking good. And they were like, you look bad. And I was like, what are y'all talking about?